Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our media and entertainment panel, How COVID Changed the Need for Digital Entertainment. My name is Karen McFarlane and I'm president of the American Marketing Association, New York. I'm very excited about this power panel today, not only because in a past life, I was knee deep in the entertainment industry, but the seismic shifts that have happened in this sector have fast-tracked marketing in ways we only imagined before the pandemic. With the whole world at home, media and entertainment companies have had to overcome new obstacles and learn to take advantage of new opportunities that either presented themselves or, more interestingly, they had to create. The innovation and creativity that is born through challenge is what pushes us as marketers to explore new ways of connection and to evolve our craft. So whether you are working in the field or a recipient of the marketing, you'll learn a lot about the pivots, precautionary tales, successes, and our panelists' path of evolution, all of which will inform your strategies and spark your own creativity. And that's great entertainment. Before we get started, I would like to extend 3 thank yous. First, to our premier partner, Greenbook, for supporting the AMA New York year-round. If you're looking for top market research firms, consultants, tools, case studies, or other resources, visit greenbook.org. Second, thank you to our sister chapters, AMA Atlanta, AMA Los Angeles, and AMA Puget Sound, with whom we partnered on this event. COVID has presented us the opportunity to provide our communities even more value now that geographic boundaries have been virtually erased, and I mean that literally. AMA Atlanta and AMA Los Angeles are here representing their chapters, but please allow me to introduce Julie Lichtenberg, president of AMA Puget Sound, who would like to say a few words. Julie.
Hello, and it's actually morning for me out here on the West Coast, so it's 9 a.m., so I've got my first cup of joe today. I just wanted to say thank you so much to AMA New York, Karen and Esther, for including us in this event. And what I wanted to quick mention is our chapter, AMA Puget Sound, has a brand new Coffee Talk series, which I will link in the in the chat. I'll have a link to our channel. And we're pretty new. We have about 6 episodes, and our 7th is tomorrow. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. We'll be joining the coffee chat. And lastly, thank you to our dedicated board and volunteers who work tirelessly behind the scenes to deliver exceptional programming. AMA is a volunteer-run organization, so your involvement and partnership drives our mission every day and gives our volunteers something to smile about. But you can get involved too. As an AMA member, no matter which chapter you join, you have access to the most relevant and compelling knowledge base of data, tools, and people available in your local area and beyond, as evidenced by today. I invite you to join this dynamic organization to learn from your peers and people leading the way, to upskill and grow your personal brand or elevate your leadership profile and build strong connections, because ultimately that's what drives progress. Whatever your career level or industry, from student to executive, AMA has a special place for you. And to that end, AMA New York has some exciting programs coming up. In February, we have 2 career boot camps on the docket to help marketers through job searches and transitions. We recently launched our My Life in 5 video challenge as a way for you to tell your career story and inspire others with theirs. Our Women Leading the Way nominations are now open. We're looking to spotlight a diverse group of female marketers who are changing the game with their innovative ideas, yet may not have received that much deserved spotlight and recognition. And for Black History Month, we will be highlighting the stories of brilliant marketers of color, a series that will continue throughout the year in support of our pledge to center and amplify the voices of our Black and Brown communities. So if you're not a member, here's how you can join your local chapter today. We are about to begin. After the presentation, we will leave 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A, so please feel free to use the chat to ask any questions that you may have. Today, we are welcoming as panelists Jen Taylor, Vice President of Digital Audience Development at A&E Networks, Amy Weigler, Vice President of Multi-Platform Marketing and Content at PBS, and Will Carafello, Senior Director of Social Media at the New York Mets. The panelists will introduce themselves in more detail, but I have the distinct honor of introducing our moderator, Preston Kevin Lewis. Preston is Senior Vice President of Latin America for Warner Brothers Consumer Products, where he directs all operations of the Latin America licensing business, leveraging iconic evergreen theatrical and television brands, such as DC superheroes like Aquaman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, Fantastic Beasts, Harry Potter, Arrow, Flash, Big Bang Theory, Looney Tunes, and a personal favorite of mine, Scooby-Doo. Prior to his current role, Preston served as Senior Vice President of U.S. Sales and Retail Business Development, where he oversaw all aspects of Warner Brothers Consumer Products, U.S. brick and mortar and online retail activity. These are all iconic brands I grew up with, so the nostalgia is real. So Preston, I now turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen. When Karen and AMA asked me to be part of this, I got really excited because if anything has been so much a part of our lives over the last year, it's been COVID and our reaction to COVID, both professionally and personally. So today I'm really excited to have Amy and Jen and Will kind of take us all on this journey to really kind of talk about the impact of COVID, how it's impacted our various different industries, and where we go from there. So we'll have a good time over the course of the next hour. But first, we're going to get started with some introductions. And I'm going to ask Amy, Jen, and Will in that order. If you guys can just share a little bit of your background and what you're doing now with the audience, and then we will jump right into it. So Amy.
Great. Hi, thank you so much, Preston. I'm Amy Weigler. I started work during COVID. I started a new job. I started working for PBS, moved my family from New York City, where I lived for 23 years, to Bethesda, Maryland for this gig here. So COVID has been pretty dramatic and for my family. Professionally, I got my start in entertainment marketing working in the theater. I did marketing for big Broadway musicals, and then I shifted to logo for Viacom, the first LGBT ad-supported network, and then MTV and VH1, and career took me there. I was there for 14 years until this June.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jen?
Oh, hi, I'm Jen Taylor. I'm the VP of Digital Audience Development at A&E Networks. I think Amy and I are going to need to chat more offline because I also came up marketing Broadway and off-Broadway theater. So we have a lot more in common than I realized. I've spent the last almost 8 years here at A&E Networks, where I'm focused on our digital products. Each of our main flagship brands, A&E, History, and Lifetime, have websites, mobile apps, and connected TV apps that are all ad-supported where you can watch our TV content. I'm responsible for growing and retaining the audience across all of those platforms. We also have 3 direct-to-consumer subscription services, Lifetime Movie Club, History Vault, and A&E Crime Central. I head up all of the acquisition and retention for those platforms as well. I also have exposure to our linear marketing strategy, which is getting cable subscribers to watch TV live, working closely with our linear marketing teams on how to leverage digital platforms like email and paid social to drive linear tune-in.
And fantastic. And Will, why don't you close that up for us, a little bit of your background.
Sure. Thanks everyone for being a part of this. I'm Will Carafello. I oversee the social media for the New York Mets. I've been in this role for 7 years now, been with the team for almost a decade, which, you know, in the world of social is a challenge in itself. So, but before that, I was with the New Jersey Devils, started up their social program. And then I worked for the Globetrotters. I've worked at Madison Square Garden, Continental Airlines Arena, and Giant Stadium. Basically, I'm living out my 9-year-old wish list of places that I wanted to work as a kid. So I've been in the sports and entertainment industry for almost 20 years. And though I've been employed for the past 19 years, I haven't worked a day in my life.
Fantastic. And I think there's a recurring theme in all of what you guys have said. And I think that there's already, just in terms of your movement through your careers, a connection and ability to kind of move through change. And we've definitely had to do that on a big level this year. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time today talking about the impact of COVID and how you've had to kind of work your way around it. But I want to start really kind of thinking from a little slightly different perspective of when you think about this last year that we've been in, what are some of the big positive changes that you could relate to that COVID has actually sparked within your industry and your companies? I would love to kind of kick us off from that perspective, and then we'll go from there. So I will just throw that up to Jen.
I'm sorry, my internet cut out for a second, and I heard we're talking about the big, and then I lost the rest of what I'm supposed to be answering. So would you mind repeating the question?
How has COVID positively impacted your industry or your company over the course of the past year? We're going to spend a lot of time thinking about some of the not so great parts of it today, but I would love to kind of kick us off and get your perspective from each of you in that arena.
Yep, so I'm coming at this from a bit of a biased perspective, having been focused mainly on our digital platforms. And I think one of the positive things that's come out of it is with the acceleration of streaming, it's really made A&E take a step back and think about audience more holistically than just driving linear tune-in. So for me, it's very positive to be thinking about meeting consumers wherever they are and however they want to consume our content.
Great. Amy?
Similar to Jen, I think that the positive about COVID is it sped up the cord cutting. So people are getting used to watching what they want to watch, when and where they want to watch it. And that's a good thing. There are challenges there too. And then from a management and leadership perspective, what COVID has done is enabled me to view the people who I work with and who work for me in a different light, as like in a more human light. I'll be talking to a colleague and their son will Zoom crash the meeting. Usually it's my son Zoom crashing the meeting. But there's just slowly but surely, we started working from home. We shifted to living at work. And now I feel we're beginning to shift back into working from home. But this whole process, being able to see people in their home environments has been incredibly heartening as a manager.
Oh, fantastic. Will?
Yeah, I think the thing I've been most proud of, from our team standpoint, is just we've had to be more creative. This has forced us into something that we're not used to. So we've had to be more creative with how we produce content, how we go about distributing that kind of stuff. So I think that's one of the things we've done really well. And I think it's also kind of put a little bit more effort, understanding of how valuable our social channels are, of how those can very easily reach everyone. So I think, it's forced us into a situation that we weren't comfortable with. And I think, we've done a really good job of adapting to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think all of you are kind of basically talking about the positive is requiring everybody to actually just think differently than where we were a year ago. And I think there's a consistent thing across not just you, but across all industries, everybody having to be different today than we were a year ago. If I think about our business, it was just looking at things like what stores actually stay open during a pandemic, right? And there are, so even in places where stores have closed, there are some stores that always stay open in a pandemic, and how does that impact your go forward strategies as you lead from there? What would be interesting to jump to is closures has been a really big part of COVID in so many different ways, whether it's movie theaters, businesses. And it'll be really interesting, I think, for our audience just to understand a little bit more about how have the closures impacted, how did they impact, and are they impacting your business in terms of some of the closures and things that have happened, cities closing, schools closing, businesses closing. How did you kind of respond to that in your business, and where that might have been a certain way 12 months ago or 10 months ago, and how is that now? And that's for all of you.
I can speak to the closures, and this is tricky because we're a media and membership organizations at PBS, but the closures, so more people at home means more people on screens. So that feels to me like feels a bit business as usual times 10 because we have more people on screens. The piece I think that is unique for a marketer in this is the tricks that I have come to love, the tricks of my trade. I've always been really good at figuring out how to leverage a number. Once I can get someone to watch something, leveraging the number into word of mouth. And I love to do that with stunting, with events, with talkbacks, with direct interaction with the consumer. And when the world is shut down, all of that goes away. And that's when Will's skill set, the social media skill set, the direct touch point skill set becomes much more imperative because I've lost the direct interaction that I love so much as a marketer.
Got it. Will, why don't you pick us up from there?
Yeah, I mean, we were obviously impacted by that as well. We were playing in, 42,000 ballpark empty, with fake sound. So obviously we were affected as well. Yeah, I mean, I think we realized that we had a lot more eyeballs on us. So we needed to produce more content. We needed to keep people engaged, well after the game was over. So yeah, I mean, we were probably one of the businesses, affected, in a unique way by it because, it was business as usual. We were still playing the games and everything, but definitely a much different feel at the games.
And Jen?
Yeah, I would say from a company perspective, we were most impacted by the closures when it came to filming and production. So our production team had to think really differently about how they did things, sending one person to film an interview rather than a full crew. When going over state lines and having to quarantine for 2 weeks, they would change process. So doing pre-production in quarantine after crossing state lines to try to maximize time, accounting for things like quarantine. Similar to Amy though, it was really a positive impact to viewing, both on linear and on digital, but without as many new series. We really had to think about how we marketed things differently, and we had to think about stunting library content more. So for example, in March on Lifetime, we had a locked in stunt. Lifetime movie is all about being locked in. So I think that was how we were impacted.
Got it. And I'm going to come back to you and Amy to really talk more about the production side of things. But I think it would be great, Will, to go a little bit deeper into, from a social media perspective. I know there's a lot of folks on this call who would love to understand in a little bit more detail, how did you really change the way that you approach the social in the midst of all this? Can you take us through some of the specifics for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we realized very quickly was that we did have a lot more eyes on us. We had, so we kind of changed a few of the things that we were doing. We expanded our hours of operations on social. We have a window in which we usually are working within. We realized that we had people longer. Again, we didn't want to clog up timelines, because especially early on, people were looking for news and information. So we wanted to be, smart about it. But, we kind of switched the content up a little bit, and especially when we were not playing, we used a lot more interactive content. We were listening a lot better, because we were spending more time, engaging with our fans, asking for some feedback. So, yeah, I mean, we really had to flip. And I think the other thing too is we kind of threw everything out. A lot of those ideas that were like, we brainstormed, in the beginning of it, and we would constantly brainstorm, but, it was just, what can we do for kids that are not in school? And, we had some programming where we had, we were reading books to kids, via our social channels and stuff like that. Just knowing that everyone at every age. So that was another thing that we looked at too, is that we use some of our other platforms in order to engage with other demos that we normally wouldn't have. We wouldn't have taken time to do a live reading or something along those lines, because kids would be in school. It's something that we wouldn't have normally done. So I think just being a little bit more creative. We definitely looked for a lot of input from a number of different departments. Just again knowing that there was a lot more resources from the whole organization that we could utilize as well.
Fantastic. I want to switch a little bit, but I am going to come back to you, Will, and it's going to be for all of you guys to talk about insights, because it's one of the things that we've been really leaning into a lot over the last year. Would love for the audience to understand how you've used insights, perhaps maybe even differently over the course of the last year. But before we get there, Amy and Jen, given your day-to-day, would love to understand the impact in terms of productions and events. What has COVID really done in that arena, and how have you had to change? Again, I know that's a big question from the audience. Amy,
I'm happy to.
Okay,
sorry.
Go ahead, Jen, you started.
Yeah, I would say sometimes we haven't had to change strategy, but the event has changed. So a good example of that is Lifetime had a float in the Macy's Day Parade. The Macy's Day Parade still happened, but it was virtual rather than an in-person event, but we still had our float and we were still able to get in front of people. We're definitely, similarly to Will, thinking about how we connect with people on social. Things like virtual watch parties are certainly all the rage these days. And we've really been thinking about, okay, well, people aren't out and about, but where are they? So for example, in the summer when it's warm, people could watch movies outside. So rather than having an indoor event, we could do an outdoor screening. So thinking about how to shift to accommodate where people are now.
Great. Amy?
Very similar to what Jen said. There's been a shift for us in a lot of our positioning. So we have a show that launched 3 weeks ago, All Creatures Great and Small, which is a remake of a PBS series in the 70s. It's a masterpiece show. And it is comfort food times 10. It's luscious landscapes. It's the kind of show that you want to sit down in a cozy sweater with a cup of hot cocoa, and that feels like what people need. So whereas in the past, I might have hit on other beats in our marketing for that show, now I'm hitting hard on comfort, on escapism. Also, there's parts of the pandemic have brought to life so much cultural conversation surrounding privilege and surrounding entitlement. And so a lot of the things that I would position before as luxurious is now more of the escapist, as in there's a fine tune there. But also, we have shows coming up that really hit hard on these issues. And sometimes it's educate yourself. PBS makes you smarter. PBS keeps you informed. So the tactical issues, when events are gone, how do we structure a conversation? We structure a conversation in hopefully an informed light on social platforms to engage our viewers and fans into that experience. So when they watch our shows, it feels like it's giving something back.
Great. Let's jump to insights. So, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about over the last year is who our customers are, and how has customer behavior changed. And I would say if there's anything that is, at least in our business, is talked about every single day every single minute of every single hour of every single day is who is the consumer, and the importance of really being connected to who that consumer is and what they want, and how and what they want today may be completely different than what it was even 6 months ago. Would love to, if you guys can just share the role of insights in your planning for your business, and how that might have changed even over the last 10 months of COVID. So Will, why don't you kick us off there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the role of insights really changed for us. Obviously, we use that, and we use that to gauge if the content is what our fans want. There's other things where we know, we do a pregame live press conference with our manager. We also do a postgame press conference with our manager. The engagement on a post like that is obviously not going to be very high, but we kind of look at coming from the baseball and sabermetrics world, like we looked at the advanced stats of that and saying, like we're having 25,000 people tune in, though it may not be a like or a retweet, those are still valuable. And in a time when fans have less access to that kind of stuff, again, we didn't have locker room access. We tried to stream all of the player reaction post game live, on our social channels, so fans could do that. So, again, from the insight, maybe we weren't getting a ton of likes and comments, and that was okay, because we looked at the deeper part of it of, hey, we have 35,000 people tuned in after the game, after a big win, because they want to hear from one of the star players from that game. So yeah, I don't know if the role changed, but it definitely forced us to kind of look at some of the stuff a little bit differently, and kind of advancing it and just saying like, hey, we're doing this for another purpose, and it's still beneficial to our fans.
Great. Amy?
This one is, for us, it's been, I don't think it's ever been more important. To give you an idea of, with more people watching more content than ever, how do we compete? How do you find us? How do we stand out? And I will never have the budget of a Netflix. I think I have I think I have Netflix catering budget on one episode of one show. So like, that's where I am, and that's my competition.
Right.
So how do I do it? I have to get really smart, and I have to spend the budget that I have in a very targeted manner, because no dime can be wasted.
Right.
So with us, I think I drive our insights people insane. Should I buy local? Should I buy national? How do I target this particular audience at this particular time? What have they watched in the past? Just so that when I'm placing my bets, there's enough knowledge behind it that I'm not throwing a dime away.
Got it. Hey, Jen, how would you add to that?
Yeah, so I'm going to reinforce that insights are imperative, and similar to Will, they haven't become more or less. They just always are something that you need in order to do marketing smart and well. So we always have a mix of kind of qualitative and quantitative data that we're looking at. When we think about COVID specifically, I would say learning about what people are looking for during that time was really helpful. So we found out that people were consuming our content to pass time and relieve boredom and feel uplifted and escape, which, similar to what Amy said, is very different than what they might have been looking for in the past. So we really had to think about how we were positioning our content and what we wanted to push out to kind of fill all of those pieces.
Great. So insights, very important. I think what I'm hearing has always been important. It's become even more important as we kind of look at just the impact of COVID and consumer behavior that has changed so much. And I think, Amy, your point, I think, is a really interesting one, is that it's not just about you, it's about everything that's happening around you in terms of just the competition. And everyone else and all these things that people, even though they can't go out necessarily, they have all these other things that they can go to during this time. The other thing that has popped up for us is also around technology. And the question that people are asking is, how has technology impacted you over the course of this year? Has there been any major technological changes that you guys have done within your organizations as a result of COVID that has now kind of become the norm for you? But would love to hear your perspective on technology and if there's been any impact in your businesses from a technological standpoint. And I think Jen just fell off and she'll be back in a little bit. So Amy, why don't you kick us off?
You know, starting a job remotely on Zoom, God bless Zoom. I did not buy their stock and I have no interest in the company, but like, it's just phenomenal to me that you can start. I've never seen my new office. I have someone on my team who's 6'5" who looks this big because he's on Zoom. It's amazing to me. Technology from a, for me, what I am most intrigued by and looking where I play when I'm not getting my work done is I play in the world of AI in a way I hadn't before, and also in AR. So I am talking more to my devices as opposed to watching them because it drives me crazy after looking at screens all day. Right. I just want to ask Alexa to do something for me on my behalf. I'm intrigued by the idea of being able to participate in an event and feel like I'm there virtually. And I've been pitched a lot of phenomenal technology tools that help to mimic the experience of a live event through virtual technology, which I think is fascinating. The more nuts and bolts of the actual production realm isn't my area of expertise.
Right.
But I am intrigued with the idea of what entertainment will look like tomorrow once we realize we are all kind of, there are aspects of this staying at home that is working. Mm-hmm. And part of it is you will never, ever, ever replace a live concert or live theater.
Right.
But sometimes I just want to stay home. Right. So how are you going to make this as rich as possible? And that is where I am looking into the future and exploring that kind of those who have their finger on the pulse of that.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I'm going to ask that question of you too, Will. I just want to follow up on some stuff that Amy has said. Amy, you talked about privilege earlier. And I think that one of the things that's been really interesting over this time and kind of thinking about things like shows and concerts, et cetera, is how the access that people have to shows, to concerts, to things like that is very, very different now as a result of COVID. To your point, we don't know necessarily what aspect of that is going to remain after COVID is over, but I think it's really, really fascinating to me how, I attended a concert a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking at a screen of this concert that was taking place in, I think it was Portland, but there were people from all over the world leaning into that, and people that may never have been able to take part in this, or whether or not it's been another show that was done by Alvin Ailey or et cetera. So I do think that there is something happening that I don't know how much we'll be able to put the genie back in the bottle. I think there is something about access that people have gotten used to that is going to be really interesting how that plays out in the future. Will, in terms of technology, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I don't remember a world without Zoom because I spend 8 hours on it every. Yeah, no, I mean that obviously was a huge opportunity for us, and we took full advantage of it. We've always had situations where players can't get to the ballpark, alumni. We can't pull things off. The flip side now was we could do it anytime, anywhere. So what we really did was our VP of alumni relations, really went deep into his Rolodex, if that's even a thing anymore. But he went deep in there, and we were able to connect with alumni that we haven't spoke to in a while. And we're all kind of in the same situation. No one's going anywhere. No one's doing anything. So we were able to set up calls, and we were able to do interviews and produce content that we normally wouldn't have had. It was also a thing where we had never thought like, oh, we could do this all the time. Like we could have been doing this, when someone's like, hey, why don't you come out to the ballpark next weekend? And an alumni says, listen, I'm busy. I can't do it. We can still collect content with them. So yeah, I mean, just that ability. I know from an MLB standpoint, they've done a phenomenal job of making expansions to the at ballpark app and the MLB apps, with more opportunities for you to create content, the filters like a Snapchat and that kind of stuff. There are big advancements in kind of that AI world and the virtual reality stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think those are two of probably the bigger things from a technology standpoint that have helped us in this time.
Fantastic. And Jen, I don't know if Jen, has she been able to get back on yet?
I apologize for getting kicked off.
No worries. So this is just a technology question, just trying to understand the impact, what kind of impact has it been from a technological standpoint for you and your business?
Yeah, so I think what's been interesting about COVID is it hasn't necessarily uncovered something new, but it's accelerated all of the trends that were already there. And I think from my perspective as a marketer of television, where people were engaging more with our content, it was really video chat technology and working from home and figuring out how to interact and be as effective and collaborate and brainstorm with coworkers that really had the most impact.
Got it. And it's funny because I think Amy spoke about this in Zoom and all of that. And I think for those in our business that have largely worked with international audiences and international teams, the idea of Zoom and virtual has been something that many people have been used to. But I think the biggest change for so many of us has been managing whole teams wherever they are consistently, 24/7 virtual. One of the things I would love to get your perspective on, and you talked about your team earlier, Amy, the tall gentleman who's pea size. Would love to understand how you guys have been able to kind of manage your teams virtually, and what's been the impact of that. I think that was one of the things that for many of my colleagues was one of the scariest moments for many people was, oh man, how am I going to do this? Not being able to have people in a room wherever they are in the world and have to motivate and inspire and do all the things that we do from a screen. Would love to, if you guys can share with the audience how you've applied this and how have you been able to kind of navigate through that?
God bless the early morning meeting. And for me, early morning is 9:30, which is still earlier than the New York City early morning meeting, which is at 10. But the 9:30 touch base with my senior team has been very helpful because I get so much work done in the hallway, in the break room, etc. There's so much just questions that I get answered on the fly that I don't have anymore. So every single morning, my senior team gets together and we go through our day. Sometimes the meeting is 10 minutes. Sometimes the meeting is a half hour. I block out from 9:30 to 10. But for me, that daily touch base, which would have made my stomach turn last year at this time, is really important because it allows us to answer all, and I keep a list on paper with pen of all of the things that I'm going to need to ask them tomorrow morning because I can't knock on their door.
Right.
So for me, that's a big thing. I also did a course on working styles with my whole entire team. I'm at the DISC evaluation, which determines your work style. I've learned I'm an I. My motto is, trust me, I'll get there. I like to play first and then I'll get all the work done. My team is all C's, which is all business all the time, and then they'll play. So learning that has really helped me. It's helped me to focus, get what I want to get done. And then learning the work styles of my team has been really helpful. And we do that across the board. So I can't speak, I'm lucky that PBS allowed us that opportunity to discover what our work styles are. But that little shift in thinking across the board has helped me as a leader get to know how to get the best from my team.
Fantastic. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had a standing morning meeting to kind of go through, the content of the day. But yeah, I mean, I think this is the technology standpoint has just been, we're in constant communication. Whether it's text, Zoom, call, like, I would say we're probably even more in touch to overcompensate for the fact that we're not in each other's face at all times. Obviously, we spend a significant amount of time, at the ballpark together. It's the 9 to 5 plus 7 to last out. So, I think we've done a pretty good job of making up for the fact that we don't see each other as much and staying in constant communication. I think probably the hard part is being able to turn it off, not taking that, not responding to that email, not responding to that, because, we've now made our home office, our real office. And, I know personally, I feel the obligation to do that. And social media, we're on, 365, 24/7. So, it's not like we're far from it, but I think it definitely has been a lot harder now of kind of, drawing that line of like, hey, you do need some time with your family and you do need some time, not in front of a device.
Fantastic. And Jen, are you
Yep,
here? Okay,
I'm here.
great. Okay.
I get back quickly when I drop off. Similarly, we also have added meetings that didn't exist prior to COVID. Both meetings with my team and meetings with the marketing senior team, just to make sure all of the dots are connected. I also think it's important to remember that people aren't getting the same social interactions with you that they normally would. So I get in the habit of, team messaging someone and saying, hey, do you have a minute? Can I stop by your office? And then we video chat and catch up on something quick and short. So it doesn't always have to be a 30-minute meeting, but it can be a 2 or 3 minute video touch base just to make sure something's clear and that you're getting the full perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And Will, you talked about just, trying to manage just the total time that people are actually spending, because I think that is one of the things that we've recognized too, is that, yes, you don't have commutes anymore, but what that sometimes means is that your day starts 2 hours earlier and ends 2 hours later, and could be the consistent thing if we don't kind of manage that. And I know that in our business, for our Latin American team, we locked in on a 2-hour block every day. Now, granted, it's Latin America and Miami and LA, so we have to kind of find that happy equilibrium. But 8 to 10 PST, all over the world, whatever that means, is time where everybody knows there are no meetings, nobody's going to call you. That's time that you can set aside for yourself and don't have to worry about that. So obviously, the LA folks get the worst of it. It actually means a lot more to the Latin American folks, but I think it's something that was well received by our teams, that making sure that people had blocked out time is really important. And I think something else that you mentioned, Jen, people do need that social interaction. And we definitely are a company that likes to celebrate. And one of the things that we were really challenged by is like celebration is a birthday and a cake and balloons and everybody in a conference room or whatever, taking them out to lunch. What really kind of showed me at the end of last year that we are really getting into what virtual celebration looks like is our end of year party with the entire Latin American team felt very much like a party. And it was all virtual, from people from all over the world, really leaning in. You felt it. And I think that that's all a byproduct of us all leaning into recognizing that things have changed and we need to change with it. I think that's another big piece. So we're getting close to the end of our time, and I wanted to just end before we take questions, thinking about the other side of things. So now there's all the vaccines being talked about, and there's now we're having perspective from the experts that maybe end of summer, beginning of the fall, we might get closer to what normal is. I'm not holding anybody to it. We'll have to see where we go. But I would love if each of you can end on just a perspective, now that vaccines are being talked about, that there seems to be some kind of ending coming. How are you planning for that? How does the fact that end of summer, beginning of fall could mean being able to open up? What does that mean to you and your business? And how are you preparing for that eventuality? Jen, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think the reality is once everyone's vaccinated and people are out in the world in a bigger way, I expect to go down. So all of the increased content consumption we've been seeing, I expect that to level off. So from a business perspective, it's how do we retain the people that we have? How do we get as many people to love us, love our content, and stick with us once life is normal? On the flip side, I would also say we all need to stop trying to go back to normal, because that's never going to happen. Where we are is where we are. And even as things change, they're never going to be what they are. So rather than trying to kind of go back to old tactics and think about things the way we used to, it's really about embracing change and being flexible and learning and continuing to move forward.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Amy?
When things return to normal, I hope we're smarter. I hope we're kinder. I hope we value the office relationships and the socialization more than we did before. I hope we keep all the insights we have about humanity during this time. That's all the mushy gushy stuff. From a professional level, I'm lucky to be at a member services organization. I hope people go back to supporting their local arts institutions. I hope that people go back to like celebrating with their community. And, you know, this is where I am looking forward to some good old fashioned marketing techniques of on the ground events to celebrate content that we all love. I think about, I'm looking forward to a Times Square takeover again that gets a lot of buzz and a lot of press, that launches a show that everyone can then escape into.
Fantastic. And Will, why don't you close us up and then we'll go to Q&A.
It means fans at the ballpark. I mean, for us, that's obviously, you know, there's nothing, I think, I know I've yearned more for than a hot dog and a cold beverage and be able to sit in front of, a nice warm day in the summer. But yeah, I mean, I think that, everything that's been said is 100%. I think we've missed human interaction. We've missed, I think we're going to appreciate it a lot more when we do have those moments. And I do think, once things change a little bit, I think, when you get that call, like, hey, do you want to go to the game? Do you want to go to the show? Should we go out to Times Square? Should we go here? Should we go to, I think people are going to start saying, yeah, you know what? I remember the time where we didn't have that option. So I'm going to take full advantage of it. So I know I'm really looking forward to being back at a game, with my family and everyone again.
Fantastic. First of all, I just want to thank all of you just for being so transparent and talking about and answering these questions. So Karen, I think we have around 5 or 10 minutes. And there's a number of questions that I'm seeing in the chat, and I'm going to lean into those questions that actually apply to all of you. And before I do that, Jen, you mentioned this idea of going back to normal and not normal. And I'm a big believer in that. I don't think that there's any way that what we were in February of 2020 is not going to be what we are when everybody's vaccinated. The world has definitely changed. The way we work, what a work day is, how we work, where we work from, what do we fly for now versus not fly for. I think there's going to be a lot of those things that will be part of our evolution. So I agree with you completely. So one of the questions that came in from the audience is this, and this is for all of you. And Karen, please keep me honest and let me know when we got to call things. How have our panelists addressed the move to virtual with respect to sponsors and advertisers with reduced audience sizes and crowds? The person who sent this says it's been a real challenge for their business, their revenue model, as they can't bring large crowds together for their sponsors. So can you guys just address that question?
Sure, I'm happy to kick that one off.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously in the same situation. We have a number of signs and sponsor activations throughout the ballpark, throughout a game, events, everything. So we had to work, closely with our sponsorship team as well as Major League Baseball to convert that to, what made sense from a social standpoint. So, I think there was good conversation there. I think, from our standpoint, it was good for partners who did not have any digital spends for them to see the power that was there. So I think that was a definite positive. Obviously, if, we had a partner who, they've got a sign and they've got an activation in game, and digital spend, getting more digital spend might have not been the ideal situation for them, but also knowing that there was no, there was more eyes on our social media and our digital platforms, that it probably worked out this year. Again, I don't think it's something that it would do, once we have fans back in the ballpark, because you're looking for the mix there. But yeah, I mean, it was something we had to do, and we had to work really closely with departments to find where the right fit was. But hopefully it's going to turn into a new revenue stream for us down the road.
Great. Amy?
We're monetized differently, so the sponsorship revenue piece is not as relevant. But the piece for me that echoes a bit of what Will said earlier is, so we are funded by our member stations, and our member stations have been hit hard by the pandemic, some more than others. So we have to increase the value with a decrease in revenue. And that's a challenge. We have to, and I feel like we're still figuring this out, right? So if our members can't bring in the same revenue they brought in last year because more people are out of work and the pandemic hit them harder, then how do we reimagine our offerings? How do we get scrappy? How do we challenge ourselves to get scrappier? Because I imagine PBS was always scrappy. And this is a really easy one for me to say. I'm 6 months in and haven't figured it out yet.
Got it.
But yeah, but by 7 months, I'll have it nailed, and we'll do a recap of this panel, and you'll all be blown away by my knowledge.
And Jen?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer this question because we are seeing increased engagement. I will say we've definitely seen an impact, especially when COVID first started, of advertisers pulling back, especially certain industries like travel, for example. But as far as, certain advertisers pulling back, I think there are a lot of industries doing very well during this time. So how can you find the people that are spending?
Got it. And I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think this might be our last question. And this is for everybody. And the question from the audience is, has anyone felt that silos have gotten bigger or smaller at your organization during this new normal? And have your efforts been more outsourced or streamlined in-house? So I'm gonna let, Jen, why don't you kick us off on this one?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think we've been making a real effort across teams and departments to not be siloed and making sure that people are connected. I think where the silos might be the worst are as far as upper management and lower management. And I think in my company especially, our executive team is doing a really good job of communicating down and being transparent with information. But I think what's missing is a coordinator getting into an elevator and being with a VP. So I think that exposure for even within a team kind of at different levels is what's missing, and where I think people need to make a little bit more of an effort, both from upper management reaching out more to less senior members, and for more junior team members to be brave and reach out directly to people that you might not have had the FaceTime with, or you're not getting the FaceTime with now, who you would have seen around the office.
That's great. Will?
Yeah, I think our HR department has done a phenomenal job of kind of helping avoid the silo buildup. We meet, fairly regularly with the whole company. And obviously there's hundreds of us in those meetings, but they'll do it where part of those meetings we break out into smaller groups and we have a chance to interact with people that we normally wouldn't. So from everyone from the coaching staff to scouts to finance and HR and every which has been tremendous, I think, for us, because we normally wouldn't get that access. No one's going to want the fourth floor, the third floor, because we just get in our own little silo and do our own thing. But now it's kind of forced us to be able to do that. So I think during this time when things have a tendency of doing that, and like I mentioned earlier, there's the constant Zoom meeting. So I think just the capability of being able to connect with people at the click of an internet connection. So I think we've done a pretty good job at it. Again, you never know what you don't know, so it'll be interesting to see if we've built up other ones, but we've torn down some.
Okay, great. And Amy?
I don't have anything really interesting to add on to that. I agree with both Will and Jen. We're pretty silo-free from what I can see organization at PBS, but the FaceTime, the spontaneous, the camaraderie, etc., I feel impedes people's ability to work together, and also not knowing people's work styles. It's harder to read a room when you are on Zoom.
Thank you so much. I think, just closing out on that last point, I think there's a couple of things that our speakers have talked about in terms of this last question. And I think one is about community. And I think if anything has really been sparked by COVID is the importance of community. And what we've realized in our business is that all things aren't equal. So everybody's at home experiences are different. You have people that are living by themselves and all of this time is by themselves. So it becomes really important for us as leaders to make sure that we are reaching out to everybody on our teams, making sure that everybody is feeling heard and seen. But I would also say to everybody on this call, to this point about silos or feeling like you are not as connected, is that being connected is something that we can also control. So I think it becomes incumbent upon everybody on this call to make sure that you're connecting and not just waiting for someone to connect to you. So in the same ways that you would have maybe reached out to someone to say, can I have a coffee with you to talk about an idea or to seek new mentors or any of that kind of stuff, you can still do that in the virtual world. So I encourage everybody to make sure that if you're feeling isolated, that you take it upon yourself to make sure that you're not, and make sure you're connecting with your HR and your management as well. So again, Jen, Amy, Will, thank you so much for giving up your time. I think that there's so much wisdom that I heard this morning. I think that everybody is going to benefit from. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Preston. Thank you, Amy, Jen, and Will. I really appreciate your time today. I think everything that Preston said also applies to your interactions with AMA. So thank you for that. And I really love Amy's comment earlier about doing like a recap later on, sometime later in the year. So if you guys are into that, you know, throw up a reaction.
The post COVID recap.
Exactly. But no, seriously, it's such a treat to learn from experts like you. Marketing is a lifelong journey. And so we're here learning together. So thank you everyone for attending the event. I know we're a little past the hour, so I'm gonna let you go. We're sending you a post-event survey and the recording. And so you'll have all this great insight at your fingertips. And we'd love for you to fill out the survey so you can help us improve. So have a great rest of your day.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.